I think it's important for Christian students to be well-spoken. And I don't think that that's possible without an acquaintance with how poetry works. One of the questions that people would often ask about the teaching of poetry in a classical Christian school is, shouldn't this be a luxury? Shouldn't this be an elective that kids who are predisposed to that sort of thing, they kind of like it, they gravitate toward it, we let them study it? But why would you have all the kids study the mechanics of poetry or the structure of poetry? Why is that important? And the answer that a biblical educator should give is that poetry is important because words are important. We are dedicated to Christian education because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Christians are inescapably logocentric. I wouldn't want all kids to be taught poetry through their education because we expect all of them to become poets. We teach math class, we're not expecting them all to become mathematicians. We teach history, and we're not expecting them all to become historians. We teach them poetry, not because we expect them all to become professional vocational poets, but because we want all of them to be able to speak well. If you teach them the rhythms of poetry, you're getting it down into their bones. It really is striking, and I think it's going to do a lot of good later. To sort of say this is an optional, it's like a niche market, is to radically misunderstand how potent poetry is.
When I went to college, I was an English major, and I did all the obligatory poetry assignments, and somehow I managed to come through with my BS degree and then my master's degree, and still come to teach the idea of teaching grammar of poetry to my kids was still intimidating. My reaction when I saw Mr. Whitland teaching the poetry on the video for the first time was, this is not nearly as hard as I thought it was.
The grammar of poetry is really designed to put the fundamentals in place regardless of what age you are. Part of equipping our children to grow up and understand the world that God has put them in, and to be able to interact with people there, and this could just be on the Great Commission level of going out and proclaiming the Lordship of Jesus Christ, is being able to communicate with people on a non-literal level and to do it well. So to understand what's been written, part of the great conversation throughout time, and also to be able to interact with culture nowadays, poetry is foundational.
Someone might ask, well, what's the point of drilling kids in the mechanics of poetry, how a poem scans and so forth? I would say one of the most immediate payoffs in this would be just a direct transfer of scansion to everyday language. Human language, just ordinary day-to-day discourse in English, is predominantly iambic. And you can take a prose piece that you have written, or you're going to present to something, or you're going to say a few things at your daughter's wedding, and it has a rhythm to it. And if you're steeped in poetic rhythms, right, if you've understood them, you don't have to become an accomplished poet where you mark it all out and diagram it. The cadences of the King James are magnificent cadences, and it's the kind of rhythms that I'm talking about, and it's not concentrated poetically, but it's informed by this kind of poetic sensibility.
In poetry, I saw elementary and junior high and high school age texts that really didn't have a foundation in place. So they were full of fun ideas and lots of colors and snazzy activities, but it was basically saying, pour forth your heart upon this piece of paper and somehow you'll create a wonderful poem. So I saw, some higher level texts that I thought, this is really interesting and it provides insight, and then no way to get from where we were in the elementary years to where we wanted to be at a higher level.
I think that this is just an important thing to do, because I want Christians to be well-spoken. Christians are people of the Word. We must therefore be people of words.